Hey, welcome to part 3 of Genesis 1. I want to welcome you to this session, and this will be our final session on this chapter. Let's quickly review our previous discoveries. We saw that Genesis 1 and verse 1 was a summary of creation. It is the story of God creating land and sky and filling it with good things. Verse 2 tells us why God filled the land and the sky, because the land was in a wrecked and chaotic state. The rest of the chapter from verse 3 on is a detailed explanation of how God did that, how he created new environments and then filled them. And that is what the 6 days of creation is trying to say to us. In session 2, we examined 3 past theories that the church has believed in its history of understanding these 6 days. This session, we will see all of that come together with the understanding of Hebraic language style. Now, I know that doesn't sound terribly interesting, but when you see how it works, how it fits the puzzle together, you'll get excited and you'll understand the days of creation in a whole new way. All your questions will be answered. Now, if you look at the days of creation, and if we take the Bible as science, we have problems like, how can day and night exist on day 1 when the sun and the moon are not available until day 4? That doesn't make sense. How can vegetation be formed and survive on day 3 when the sun is not existing till day 4? That doesn't make sense. How can we have 3 days and nights if the sun and moon do not even exist until day 4? I mean, surely sun and moon make up a day, do they not? So where is sun and moon on day 1? Where is it? Why is it day 4 that we first hear mention of it? See, the problem seems to exist around the position of day 4 in our timeline of 7 days. But watch this. In Mesopotamian thinking and Hebraic literature, parallel structuring of thoughts is a literary style. In an ancient world with no TV, no internet, no Scrabble, how did one entertain oneself? Well, one told stories around the campfire, didn't they? And made them memorable. And how did they make them memorable? With poetic styles and word plays. This parallel style of language or speaking was like an entertaining form of speech, and it was designed to make things more memorable. A little bit like a jingle from a line in a song in your head. You can carry it around all day and find it coming back into your mind even when you don't want it to. Isn't that annoying? But it happens. There's something about making something memorable that helps it stay in your head. And that's what these ancient people were doing, making their stories memorable. In Hebrew literature, they love to make speech poetic and to play with the sound of words. For example, the statement, "the painter painted the painting," has several similar sounding words, doesn't it? And these ancient people, they loved the sound of that kind of speech. It was for them entertaining. To us, a tongue twister is entertaining. But if we put a tongue twister into our computers and our grammar checkers start actioning, we see that the grammar checker sees a statement like that as bad English. And it will try and suggest some rephrasing. And it might suggest that we say something like, "the artist painted the picture," because that has a better English structure to it. But the ancients, they liked a different structure. Parallelism continues right through Hebrew thinking to the rabbis in the New Testament, and even to the Apostle Paul's epistles. You know, Bible colleges are full of courses all over the country and all over the world on how Paul's arguments followed a Hebraic thinking pattern. And that pattern was thought A, followed by thought B, followed by thought C, and then restating thought C again, maybe in a modified form or using slightly different words to say the same thing, followed by thought B again, back to thought A. But what I want you to notice there is that the hinge thought or the hinge point of that kind of thinking is point C. And so it all hinged around that middle point. And so there was this parallel structure of thinking. Our Western thinking is linear. For example, when we describe a journey, we think of starting at point A and going to destination point B. And once we reach our destination, our journey is finished. We've arrived at our destination. But Hebraic thinking is circular. A journey starts at point A, goes to point B, which is the destination, and then it comes back to point A. Because in Hebrew thinking, your journey is not over until you get home. Recently, Richard Branson has just offered people the opportunity for a return trip to the edge of our Earth's atmosphere and the beginning of space. He's charging $450,000 US for the privilege, and people are booking in for it. How amazing is that? If, however, he offered free one-way tickets to outer space, I think the bookings would drop right off, don't you? Why? Because the point of the journey, honestly, and mostly, unless you're immigrating, is that you will eventually come home. Then the journey is complete. And it's not complete until you get home. That is circular thinking. To understand the creation story, we need to think Hebraically, not imposing our Western thinking on the passage. But the ancient Hebrews take that circular thinking to a whole other level of going over the same journey several times. And they do this both in Genesis 1 and Genesis 2. But each time they add extra information or they focus on a different part of the story. On each cycle of the story, you're getting slightly additional bit of commentary than what you got in the previous circle of the story. In July, my wife and I went on tour to the Hole in the Rock in the Bay of Islands of New Zealand. We enjoyed it so much that we did it twice, 2 days in a row. Each trip, we had a commentary from the captain. We had two different captains on one day, one on the other day. The commentary had the same storyline, but also contained additional bits of the story when we got to the second commentator. Bits of the story that the first commentator had left out. That is why we will see in a moment, the 6 days is 2 parallel trips through the same story. If creation is the filling of something, what did God fill? Well, he filled the sky above and he filled the land below. So what we see in the days of creation are 3 days of God separating elements to create new environments and 3 days of God filling those environments. So we have 2 separate thoughts and ideas going on in the same story. And what the 6 days does, it separates out those 2 ideas into 2 parallel lists. And so the first 3 days are the days of separation. And you can see on your screen there that day 1, that light and darkness are formed. And so God says that he separates light and darkness. Well, how does he do that? Well, the answer is in day 4, when we see the sun and the moon turn up, because the day 4 and day 1 are related. They are point A of the same story. And so we see the sun and the moon being created or filling the then known world with what created the light and the darkness, the day and the night. Now that makes sense. Point B of our journey is day 2 and day 5. In day 2, we see water and sky being created. The water above is the heavens, and the firmament is the sky. On day 5, which is also part B of our journey, we see God filling the sky and the water with fish and birds. So there is a separation to create the environment, and there is the creation of birds and fish to fill those environments. Point C of our journey is day 3 and day 6. We have the water and the land being separated. And then on day 6, we find animals and people are created to fill the land. This is a common sense interpretation of the creation story. I think it makes far more sense. We realize that the creation story is like a psalm or a song of creation. It is poetic language designed to capture the ancient listener or reader's attention. Suddenly, the puzzle of things seemingly out of order disappears, as we see the order of the days was not meant to be understood as a timeline. It was a Hebraic literary structure giving 2 parallel commentaries of 2 aspects of creation. God creating 3 new environments and God filling those environments. What are the things that the lessons that we can take away from Genesis chapter 1? There are 3 important lessons. It was not written to teach astronomy, geology, or biology. It was written to show the relationship of a specific Eastern people group to a creator God. Any attempt to impose either a scientific or a literal reading of Genesis 1 takes away from this important truth of the possibility of human beings having a relationship with God. That should be central to our understanding of Genesis chapter 1. The second thing that we learn is that God revealed his creation story to a people group surrounded by nations that believed that objects, places, and creatures all possessed a distinct spiritual essence or possessed a living personality or soul, and their religions were based on worshiping many gods of mythology. Genesis chapter 1 has a strong thrust against such mythology. For example, God created the sun and the moon. They were not gods. They were not to be worshipped as gods. God alone is the creator, and he is to be worshipped. Also, human beings are made in the image of that creator God and are therefore not to worship man-made images, but the living God, who is the creator of heaven and earth. The third lesson that we see in Genesis 1 is that Genesis needs to be interpreted from a Hebraic worldview that was existing from 2500 BC, which is a long, long time ago, to 1500 BC, not from a 17th century AD European King James worldview, and not even from a 21st century scientific worldview. The ancients used figurative language and literary rules that were the style of their day. They also imposed a system of numbers as a convention to harmonize the text to conform to the numbers 7 and 3, which they considered as sacred numbers. This was the poetic nature of that era of writing and thinking. So what does this story of creation mean for us personally today? It means this, that God can create, if he can create the universe, he can create whole new environments in our lives. But he not only creates, but he fills what he has created with good things. We often call those things blessings. Right from the very start of the Bible, the God of creation has been working hard to provide blessings and goodness into our lives. When we walk away from God, we choose to walk away from his good blessings. And we walk into the knowledge not only of good, but also the knowledge of evil. People say that they're searching for spiritual development or growth in their lives, or some form of spirituality. Yet the God of creation has been there all along to develop and bless us with every spiritual blessing that is available. God wants to fill your life today with the blessing of his presence. Just invite him into your life today. Let God not only create a new environment in your life, but let him continue to work on filling you with his many blessings, his many good things that are yet to come into your life if you will connect to the living God, creator of heaven and earth. God bless you. Have a great day, and we'll see you again on this YouTube channel. God bless for now. Bye-bye.